It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. It's Monday. It's May. Welcome to it. Gary, how are you?
Oh, wow. May Day.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mayday Malone from Cheers. Mm-hmm. Mayday, you know, the emergency call.
The distress signal, as in we're doomed.
Yes, as we're doomed.
Uh-huh.
Mayday as the celebration of socialism and communism and its great success worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's going to be listening for the first time. What's this show I'm listening to? Oh, they're promoting socialism and communism. I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, look at Venezuela. Remember that whole thing? When the left for 10 minutes used Venezuela as the example of how to do socialism.
Which that was that was their evidence. That was greatness.
GM. They came in and stole all of our property.
That was their evidence that actually communism, fascism works. It's just we've never had the right people doing it.
That's right.
That narrative that goes on.
We're much smarter than stupid socialists. We're smart socialists. It won't fail ever.
Those people couldn't tell you, they told you that they could make your life better, but they can't make your life better by dictating to you how to live your life. No. But we, by telling you how to live your life, we can dictate to you the correct way of how your life should be run by us. Mm-hmm. All right, but you know something? Let's sit there and let's all come together. The world needs to come together. We all need to come together. It's great when we see that there are great like minds, even all the way across the globe. For example, Australia.
Yeah, all right.
All right. For example, this was the news, the national news from Australia a couple of days ago. May relate to something that you heard on Red Eye last week.
Well, Liz Storer, is Kamala Harris the worst communicator you have ever heard?
Absolutely. Feast your eyes on this latest word salad from the Vice President of the United States of America.
It's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future.
What is this woman smoking?
When the Australians look at you and say, "You're crazy," you know you're in trouble.
Sky News Australia from late last week.
She's going a little batty. Oh, I think she's smoking something. Lots of weed, maybe. I think she's smoking weed. Wow. And I've never smoked weed. Maybe I need to give it a go. I'm going to start smoking lots of weed right now.
Oh, man, I'm telling you.
I mean it's over and everybody, for some reason, the one from last week just stayed fresh the entire week.
Yeah, it did.
You know, I thought maybe we had come to a point where it just kind of, okay, well, you know, it fades in it's the acceptance, well, that's who she is. That's all you're going to get out of her. But last week, yesterday, it was still as if it just happened.
Well, you know, there was a slight delay in the reaction because we played it. Well, we only played the first half of it. We didn't even get to the last portion of it I selected, that was my fault of selective editing it because it was so bizarre the first couple of sentences that I don't need to finish it. And it's like, no,
Right.
I was wrong. You needed to finish it. But we played it and went, wow, nobody really noticed this. And by the time we came in the next day, everybody was on it.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah, it was, it just, and it's still, I mean, on Sunday, again, it was still circulating like it had just happened. But that's the insanity. That's where the Democrats are right now. And I think a lot of it is because it is that realization that, well, if he's going to run again, and if he wins, then it's just a matter of time, as many people believe, that he will have to step down and won't be able to finish his second term if he wins. So she's it.
Yeah, maybe that was it. Maybe it was the announcement and then having that sitting right there where it's like, okay, that's going to be, that's really who you're voting for.
Right.
Wow. And then we had the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which has now just become a complete and total Democrat love fest.
Yeah.
But then Biden said this, which got a lot of comment from conservatives over the weekend. But here you go.
In a lot of ways, this dinner sums up my first 2 years in office. I'll talk for 10 minutes, take 0 questions, and cheerfully walk away.
You could hear them all cheering.
He's laughing at the media, making a joke essentially at their expense, and they still laugh.
Which, again, proves our point. Because if you were a journalist and upset about that, you would boo.
Yeah, you would.
You would boo. Because if Trump said that, I'm not answering any of your questions. That was the one thing that came out. Was like, could you imagine if Trump said, or any Republican said the things that Biden said? People would have been booing. There would have been booing and
Yeah, that's what you would have heard. Yeah, I'm not sure Mike Lindell would have laughed at that if Trump had said it. Ooh, a little too soon. This is who Biden is. His defiance is so great. His arrogance is so far gone that he'll sit there and make the joke and laugh at you and then watch you laugh.
Well, but they understand it because they understand they're not journalists or political activists. So it's just putting the message across so they all know what's going on. They all know that the White House does not respect them in the slightest as journalists, understands that they are political activists, not journalists. They're not seeking the truth, so they're okay with it.
That's a good point. We believe half of the jokes were written by the L.A. Times reporter. We saw the cue cards.
Instead of the White House writing her question for her, because remember, they claimed there was no communication at all. So instead of the White House assuming what her question was going to be, she decided just to write, to the White House and say, "Here's what you say."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just it's embarrassing where journalism has gone in the United States, but it's important that you and I will never forget after it was when we finally had it with conservatives analyzing the media, and this was after the Mueller report came out, and you had conservative outlets. We hope now that this is a lesson, because now that we have found out that, and then after the Inspector General's report on everything that was going on, where we realized that everything that was being peddled, about Trump colluding with the Russians was actually Hillary Clinton colluding with the Russians and paying for the lie, and Democrats across the board all for it. And when the Mueller report came out and conservative outlets said, well, maybe this will make the mainstream media realize that they've lost their journalistic ethics and their journalistic principles. And we said, please stop it, guys. Stop it. Just stop it.
Yeah.
Stop saying that. There's hope. There is no hope. They're not journalists. They're political activists. Right there showed you.
Yeah.
You want more evidence? Right there at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Mm-hmm. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
What they
nothing
claim
is going to change.
Right.
Nothing is going to change. They're not going to change. He's not going to change. It's going to go like this as long as he's president, and, man, if she becomes president, oh, my gosh.
Woo.
Think about the answers if she's standing in the Rose Garden. Now, here's the thing.
Whoa.
On the bright side,
Could she ever do a press conference? Ever?
I think she'll insist on doing it, and it will sound like what you just heard a couple of minutes ago. Every answer. Remember when Obama was giving these war and peace length answers? And it was just, killing his numbers. His approval numbers would take a dive. After every time he spoke to the media, we actually said, you should probably not do press conferences for a while. And they stopped for several months. We believe he listened to the show while he was taking a cigarette break at 2 a.m. And I could see her just going on and rambling forever. I think she'll want to take answers. I think she'll stand out there and ramble and talk in circles every day. I don't think she'll hide from the media. I think she'll believe she's the next rock star.
Well, the reason I think you have a great point there is the fact that she keeps doing these things. Now, again, we don't know whether this is scripted or whether she's going off whether this is off the teleprompter or whether she's just doing this ad lib. But it's never stopped. It's only gotten worse.
Right.
Even there is a recognition that Biden cannot be out there answering, any questions ad lib.
Right.
He can't do it. And if he does, then they have coached him that once you make the question, if there's a follow-up, you just go, and you turn your back and you walk away. Mm-hmm. But think about that. Biden basically said, remember, because, of course, they were going to be the most transparent administration, which, of course, they're the least transparent administration, one of the least transparent. But he basically said, I turn my back on you and America, and I will not answer questions. And it becomes one of the hottest jokes that all the Democrats and all the Democrat media is laughing at. Mm-hmm. Think about that. Understand that the White House has no intention of being honest with you, and they want to brag about the fact that they're not being honest with you and won't answer your questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the media cheers it.
They're proud of it.
So really no self-awareness for actually using that line when you think about it.
Yeah. No.
Or maybe full self. No, actually, or maybe full self.
I think
maybe I'm wrong on that. Full self-awareness.
It could be quite the opposite. I think he understands, and now I think it's confirmation. The fact that he delivered the line, got the yucks, and now he's standing there going, "Oh, okay, we're done. We're golden."
Right.
I don't ever have to answer a question again.
You're all Democrats. You're all political activists. You know I don't have the ability to answer any question.
Yep.
You know that if I'm fully honest with the American public as to what's going on, I won't get voted in again. You're okay with me lying. You're okay with me lying and then under cross-examination not answering any of your questions. You're fine with that. I'm fine with it. Let's just move forward on this same. You've just given the president confidence to continue doing it because the media applauded it.
Yeah.
How pitiful. How pitiful. How absolutely uncaring, to the American public. Think about it. The arrogance that exists there. I'm not going to answer your questions, and I'm going to brag about it. I'm not going to be transparent. Deal with it. I'm not going to tell you the truth. Suck it.
I'm going to laugh at you.
I'm going to laugh at you.
And you're going to laugh along with me.
866-90-RED-EYE.
When it comes to truck maintenance, sometimes it's the little things that can cause the most trouble, like cabin air filters. When properly serviced, cabin air filters provide a barrier between pollutants and harmful particles outside and your HVAC system. If you don't pay attention to them, however, this small part can turn into big trouble in no time. Breathe easy when you know how often to get your filters replaced. Long-haul drivers should replace their cabin air filters every 50,000 miles, or according to the manufacturer's recommendations. If you operate in dusty environments, consider servicing your cabin air filters more often. This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90-RED-EYE. You remember a couple of years ago when Bernie Sanders was on the debate stage and said, basically billionaires shouldn't exist. Remember that one?
Yeah.
He went into more specifics with Chris Wallace over the weekend on CNN. You ready?
All right.
Here we go.
Sir, you're saying that billionaires should not exist. So are you basically saying that once you get to $999 million that the government should confiscate all the rest?
I'm saying that we should go back to a very progressive tax policy like what we had under Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Which would mean that over $1 billion, basically it all goes to the government.
You may disagree with me, but
I'm just asking.
Fine. Yeah, I think people can make it on $99 million.
Sir, you're saying...
So there you go. Now, you're not going to have any major corporations built in America.
No, investment, real
right.
investment, not government, what government calls investment.
Right.
Real investment would just dwindle to nothing.
And as you can see, what he wishes to do is government control all of the capital, which is controlling the means of production. So you can officially now designate Bernie Sanders by the technical definition, he is a communist.
Yeah.
Because that's communism.
Yeah.
That's what it gets to, is the government controlling all of the capital.
Yep.
Because there is no incentive at that particular point to expand your wealth. What you're trying to do at that point is basically move out of the country. By the way, well, some of the figures, see some of the U.S. Census reports of the amount of money moving out of New York and moving out of California and moving out of Illinois.
Yeah.
People are, rich
you don't have a
moving.
choice.
Right.
At some point, you can't afford to stay.
Yep.
And that's where we are. And that's exactly what would happen if we were to enact this no billionaires policy that Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and all of them want. Well, what are the billionaires going to do? They're going to get up and leave. Yeah. Investment gets down to nothing. And everybody that believes the way that Bernie does is going to sit there and wonder, what the hell happened? Like the people of California, all these policies that everybody cheers on, and over the weekend, the president of California, Freudian slip, too soon. He'll be president one day, but not yet. The governor of California signed the whole thing. Only electric big rigs starting, I think it's 2036. You can't sell anything but electric big rigs. Now, for all of you who are cheering that on in California, when you look at the shelves and wonder where you're going to get your stuff after 3 or 4 days, why isn't my stuff here? Why is it we only get deliveries every other Thursday? But cheer it on, this kind of policy, and see what happens. If we were to go that direction, no billionaires, all electric vehicles. Because all they want to do is grab control of the means of production of energy. They know it's going to fail. They know it can't work. They want to grab the capital. You just heard it from Bernie. They want the money and the means of production. That's communism.
The toothpaste is out of the tube. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. You want some gaslighting? Fauci over the weekend on CNN. All right, here we go.
Go and look at the tape, the tail of the tape, when I kept on saying over and over again, we've got to get the children back to school as quickly as possible. We've got to get them in school safely, and we've got to make sure that they are not essentially out of school, at home, getting all of the negative consequences. Different parts of the country interpreted that differently. There was...
Shut up. Just shut up. I'm sorry.
Some people are too stupid to understand words.
And the whole thing, what him and Randy Weingarten saying the same thing.
Yeah.
When it got to be where the public was completely against it is when they started moving their opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They really didn't have a choice. They were being carved out of the rest of pretty much everybody.
Reading here, Wall Street Journal, we talked about Randy Weingarten last week, but Randy Weingarten's incredible COVID memory loss.
Yeah.
The teachers union chief tries to rewrite the pandemic history of school closures. Much still needs to be learned about the long-term health effects of COVID-19, but we already know one of the clear long-term political effects, memory loss.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way to explain why longtime advocates of pandemic lockdowns are now denying that they ever supported the school and economic shutdowns that did so much harm to so many. Leading the amnesia parade is Randy Weingarten, the American Federation of Teachers president, who attempted to erase 2 years of COVID history in testimony last week to the House of Representatives. That was literally unbelievable. She told the House, "We spent every day from February on trying to get schools open. We know that remote education was not a substitute for opening schools." She told the House, "We know that young people learn and connect best in person, so opening schools safely, even during a pandemic, guided our actions, which I will describe in detail." Alas, her detail omitted a few things, such as her description in July of 2020 of the Trump administration's push to reopen schools for in-person learning that autumn was, quote, "this reckless, this callous, this cruel," end of quote. That summer, she endorsed teacher safety strikes if unions deemed local reopening protocols to be inadequate. Hundreds of private and charter schools did open that fall without a surge of illness that Ms. Weingarten claimed to fear. She also left out the detail that local union affiliates were the most aggressive opponents of school reopening throughout 2021 and even into 2022. "We are practically begging the Chicago Teachers Union to come to the deal so we can get a deal done," said Lori Lightfoot, Chicago's Democratic mayor, in February of 2021. I remember that story. Don't you? Yes. Even a year later, in January of 2022, the Chicago Union again voted against in-person learning. The union said it wouldn't relent until the surge in COVID-19 cases subsided or the school district signed an agreement establishing conditions for return. After Governor Ron DeSantis ordered Florida schools to reopen in autumn of 2020, the Florida Education Association sued the state to keep them closed. The schools opened, much to the benefit of students who learn far better in person, according to all evidence. We could cite many other union quotes and efforts. Ms. Weingart and others are trying to rewrite history because they realize now, far too late, that their lockdowns were very unpopular. The public can see the damage and lost learning and livelihoods. The lockdown lobbyists want everybody to forget it happened, but it's important for democratic accountability that they don't get away with it.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And, it was bound to go this way. This is exactly how Democrats in office and liberals that occupy office do the same thing. They pretend as if the internet doesn't exist. And that if you show them a clip of them saying otherwise, it's you that misunderstands what they were trying to say. Yeah. That's the insanity.
And we went through the quotes from, I don't have them here in front of me, but we went through all the quotes last week from Fauci of what he had said at that time. Because last week, his excuse was that, I didn't close them.
Yeah, right.
No, but you advised to close them.
Right.
I didn't close one school. Well, no, you didn't have the authority. Only the states could do that.
Right.
But you advised them to do it, and we went through all the quotes of when he did, and now they're all running for their lives from this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Instead of saying, here's what's interesting. Instead of saying, no, at the time, this is exactly what we believed needed to happen, and it's what we did. That's somebody who can own it and say, listen, and hindsight is 20/20, and we've learned a lot, and it wasn't the right thing. But the problem is that they didn't care. Because if they would say that would be a demonstration that they did care along the way, and that they were willing to reassess at any moment along the way, and they weren't. They were drunk with power and believed they could get away with it until they said otherwise. Until they wanted to change things, things weren't going to change. Because so much was given to both Fauci and Weingarten. You look at those, those two individuals and how much control they had. And well, I didn't have the authority. Yeah, you did. You had the influence, and that's all it took.
And I would ask the question because we knew from the very, very beginning, as you said, there's been two constants of COVID. One, and this is from the very, very beginning. You and I know it because we went through every day of it, and as did everybody else. But we went through every day of actually covering it on the air, and we knew from the very, very beginning, from the early Washington State nursing homes, where the deaths were from the very, very beginning. We knew that it's a completely different disease for those that are elderly with underlying conditions than it was for the young. The young was not affected by it, less than the flu, and we don't close schools for the flu. And we had asked that when schools started closing even early on, well, why are they doing this? All right, maybe there's some unknown. By the time we got to the summer, though, we knew that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And then we had talked that schools should reopen because we can't find, there was no evidence, zero evidence that existed that children, were affected by it like elderly people were. There was nothing to that extent whatsoever. There wasn't anywhere between, 10 to 20% fatality rate of somebody who was elderly, with an underlying condition or obese or whatever, high blood pressure. Totally different ball game there.
Yeah.
And we knew it from the very, very beginning. And we would say, why? And so remember, we're in August we're talking August, September of 2020. By 2021, Randy Weingarten and Fauci wasn't screaming to open the schools in 2021.
No.
And all of a sudden, you got Weingarten saying in February 2022, she was saying, let's open the schools. Well, at that point, we'd gone through almost 2 years of it and known that it was the wrong thing to do. And now we know the lockdowns in general, but especially the lockdowns of schools, was completely and totally unnecessary.
Yep. And now they want you to believe that wasn't them.
Yeah. It wasn't us. We didn't do it. Oh, yeah. Republicans must have been calling from. It was Trump and DeSantis' fault.
Right. Yeah. Remember when, after Biden came in, Fauci was the darling of the liberal media, and he was mocking Trump.
Yeah.
After saying that, look, everything we advised him to do, he did. He was following our advice, our guidance. And then when Trump is no longer president, he's mocking him. this is the media attention that he was getting, put up on that pedestal and treated like he was a king. And he was celebrating. This guy was celebrating. Again, drunk with power, thinking he's the all-knowing. Smartest guy in the room. You must be stupid if you now he's saying, you must be stupid if you misunderstood what I was saying then.
Right, I was saying all schools should be open, and you took it that all schools should be closed.
Right.
Just amazing. I mean, you just shake your head in absolute disgust. We went through this entire thing, and he's hoping, and Randy Weingarten is hoping that because they're speaking to the people that support them now, which are Democrats, and they're hoping that Democrats are idiots. That's what they're hoping.
Yeah.
That Democrats have no memory whatsoever, that they're all smoking weed. They have no short-term memory or medium-term memory, and they have no idea of what they were calling for during COVID. That's what they're hoping for, because Republicans certainly haven't forgotten. Conservatives haven't forgot what happened during that time.
No. Fauci is hoping that basically everybody on the left at this moment in time will think of this moment in time and remember this moment in time as we only recall only this
moment in
time, not that moment in time.
No, not back.
No. This moment,
not
now,
past moment
now,
in time,
not
present
then.
moment in time.
Yes.
Right, you need to be present in that moment of time.
You're not being present. They're all smoking weed. Every one of them. You're chewing on a mushroom, dude. I don't know what is going on in your mind if you believe you're going to win this, Fauci.
It may be beyond weed.
Yeah.
I just love that, though. No, I was saying everything should be open. Everything should be open. Anybody who didn't know that must have interpreted that wrong.
It must
have interpreted. Yeah. Here's the thing. Different parts of the country. I love different parts of the country.
Yeah. What? You mean like Texas? Florida? You want to get more specific? What do you mean, different parts of the country?
They must have taken where I was saying, get all those schools open right away, as they must have taken it as I was saying, keep the schools closed.
Yeah.
No, the opposite.
Yeah. That's, that's on them if they misunderstood me.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. 866-90 Red Eye if you'd like to get in. Well, we have two more Obama economists saying we have a stagflationary problem, and also that it would help if we weren't spending as much money. That spending is a problem. Now, understand how I started this. Two Obama economists saying it. So we'll get to that. Senator Ernst slams Biden's push for U.S. military all-electric vehicles. Have you seen anywhere over the weekend where anyone's come out and said, well, no, we meant just non-tactical?
I didn't see any qualification.
I still haven't seen anything on that yet.
Since she said it. Because that's kind of what I expected, the following day.
Yep.
No, we mean only non-tactical vehicles. I didn't see that qualification. Because it was built on the premise that she set that as the example, as the justification was any kind of geopolitical situation that would cause a disruption in oil supply.
Right.
Which implies that our military would suffer as a result of that. Of course, sidestepping the whole SPR thing.
The SPR, the fact that we have enough to take care of anything that the military needs with our own production here in the United States, and that if we go electric, we are going to be much more dependent on places like China and other non-friendly countries to the United States.
Yep.
You can't even make that argument. That's the thing. That was the poorest argument she could make.
Lithium and cobalt, we would be bowing to everybody else for those two alone. And still, it doesn't matter.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. 866-90 Red Eye. You know, I just want to mention one more thing about, Fauci coming out and saying, I wasn't for lockdowns. I have no idea if you thought I was. Different parts of the country, I made it clear I was against the lockdowns, but, different parts of the country took that differently.
Yeah.
All you need to do is go back to the introduction of the Great Barrington Declaration in the autumn of 2020 that came out and said we were doing the wrong thing and the lockdowns were the wrong thing to do. Remember that?
Yep.
And who was the number one person against what the Great Barrington Declaration was stating?
Fauci.
Anthony Fauci. It is amazing. Like I said, we saw Weingarten last week. Scott Jennings, we played the audio cut of him on CNN, just laying into her.
Yeah.
Just laying into her last week. But it seems that, that's what they're trying to say now. What happened didn't happen.
Right, yeah. Yeah, no, something's wrong with you. You must be misremembering.
Yeah.
I don't know what part of the country you live in. What does it have to do with parts of the country? It's only the red states that are asking him questions now. Is that what's going on?
Apparently, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Everybody else wishes to. Were the people of New York, Illinois, and California, were you happy with the lockdowns? Yeah. Did you hope they're going to happen again?
Well, gosh, the guy who was governor in New York at the time, he was doing a perfect job. He got rewarded and awarded. Everybody was singing his praises.
The next president of the United States.
Oh, man. Hero. Yeah. Yeah, no. Nobody is misremembering. Some people are choosing not to ask you questions right now. That's up to them. But the ones who want answers right now are the ones who wanted answers all along. And you failed. Miserably.
I just figured I wanted to throw that in because that was when the Great Barrington Declaration came out.
Yeah.
And was signed by all these doctors saying, look, this is the wrong thing. And they were they were demonized like you couldn't believe. And at the top of the line, demonizing the Great Barrington Declaration, which ended up being, for the most part, absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Now that we look back at it, they were the doctors saying, this is the wrong thing to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You saw that brain affliction? The doctors are wondering whether that's because that they haven't come to a conclusion yet, but they're wondering whether that could be because kids' immunity system is down because they weren't in school all that time.
Mm.
And again, I'm not making it. That was just in an article that I read that doctors, they haven't come to a conclusion, but that's something that they're looking into, that immunity actually went down. And I went, wow, that's the whole George Carlin thing, remember?
Yeah.
That whole George Carlin bit.
Germs.
No, you need germs.
Right.
No, we should washing our hands. What? No.
No. Go out and play in the mud.
Right.
But no, I mean, that was, it was pretty much common knowledge in our era when we were kids. And that's something that, was ignored. And don't you dare say anything like herd immunity. You're an extremist if you say the words herd immunity.
Remember that. Right. And now I believe, and I haven't seen anything that has changed on this, that if you got COVID, you are actually more well protected than if you didn't get COVID.
Right.
And got the shot. But the fact is now, I mean, I've seen numbers as high as 97% of people, they believe, got COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So that really doesn't apply as much anymore.
Well, we said all along that, the numbers that they were promoting, and we, you have to keep in mind that those numbers that were being promoted were people who were being tested.
Right, exactly. Right. And we always thought it was a great deal more.
Right.
We just said, well, this thing, everybody's being exposed to it. There's no way you cannot be exposed to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I talked to a guy one time. This is an acquaintance who lives in my neighborhood, but if he takes time off, he doesn't get paid. I mean, he has to work in order to get paid. So, I said, how'd you do through COVID, the whole thing? And he said, well, I didn't have to take much time off. We kept working. They work outside.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I guess that's good. He goes, yeah. I said, did you ever get COVID? He goes, I never got COVID. He said, I never got tested, but I never got COVID. He says, maybe I had it and didn't feel it. He said, I never got symptoms. I don't know how many people that would apply to. You would have to ask somebody much smarter than I am, and a virologist or anybody in the field. Because here's the thing. I don't even know if they know, because I don't know how you gauge that. What's the estimate even, the guess, the best educated guess on the number of people who got it, didn't have symptoms, or maybe had mild symptoms?
I guess that would be the only way that you could look at it, is because of how the different variants were more were contagious, and if people are in a particular, people are in families, whatever, and in the workplace, whatever, that over that 3-year period, over the 3-year period now, we're in the 3-year period now, aren't we? My God.
Yeah.
Time has flown.
Yeah.
I just realized it's with 3.
Yeah.
I remember right around a year ago right now. You know why I remember a year ago, or not a year ago, 3 years ago right now? This is, we were talking about Cuomo. This is when he was, becoming a deity.
Yeah.
Remember, right about now.
Yep.
What a great job versus Trump. What a great job versus Trump. I remember we were like, what about the nursing home thing?
Right.
It's like nobody paid attention to it. But the nursing home thing.
And remember, their best line, or their first line of defense on that was, oh, well, he wasn't aware of that.
Oh, God.
He had nothing to do with that.
Oh, I remember that. And
that's what they tried to float the first time.
And that had come out by now.
Yeah.
That had come out by now. And we're like, well, wait a minute, why are they complimenting him so much?
Right.
He, it's, I did see, talk about political comebacks. Did you see I think it was New York Post, Wiener's friends are telling him that he should run for New York mayor.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's...
Well, go for it.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't know who your friends are, but go for it.
But, yeah, so when you look at, when you go back and look I thought about that during the top there. I go, well, wait, the Great Barrington Declaration, everybody knows that. I mean, when that came out, I mean, they were eviscerated by the media and by by the Democrats and by Fauci.
Right. Yep.
So.
Yep, they were shunned completely.
So, the other interesting thing is, too, because another thing I want to find out, I saw that Attorney General Ken Paxton wants to investigate the pharmaceutical companies. Mm-hmm. And I think the one thing that I want investigated is why were we told? Why were we told? I want the information of why we were told that the shots would stop the spread.
Right.
And I want to find out whether it was the pharmaceutical companies putting that out. Now, they claim they weren't. They claim their research did not tell them that. Well, then why didn't you tell the public?
Yeah.
Then who did? Because that's what we were told you need to get. The whole thing of firing people for not taking the shot was that they could spread it.
Right. That if you show up, you're going to infect everybody else because you didn't get the shot, implying that those who did get the shot weren't capable of spreading it. And that wasn't the case. And you make a good point on, well, wait, why didn't you step out as a pharmaceutical, as the maker of the vaccine? You would want to clarify that, saying, hey, we're not making that claim.
Right.
Because you open yourself up to litigation.
No, because
they were given protection.
They were given protection
early
by the government, right?
Mm-hmm. As a part of the emergency declaration.
But we were hearing that really from government officials. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were the ones that were promoting it. Mm-hmm. And then it came back, I forgot which pharmaceutical company executive said, well, no, we didn't even test for that.
Right.
We're just trying to find what was effective, but we never made that claim. And, I want to get to the bottom of that. Why was it? Because think about how many, and now these people are suing and getting their jobs back and back pay and everything else. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it never had to happen.
Right. Yeah, this is going to cost us a lot for a long time because of the wrong response over and over again. And it wasn't, if you want to say, all right, the first 6 to 8 weeks, but even then we were learning too quickly about what was going on and everything else. There was so much information and we talked about it at the time, that was available and was being considered. And then all of a sudden, it was a one-way street. It was a one-way aisle. Remember the one-way aisles in the grocery stores?
Yes.
Yeah. I was ticketed 3 times by a woman named Karen.
Well, I remember right about now, all the golf courses were closed.
Yeah. Yeah, and
remember this is the one I'll never forget, the one that kids outside cannot play in more than 4 to a group.
Right. No, the governor of Michigan would come and shut you down.
That was even
the SWAT team would move in on your kids.
But I'm talking about this was Texas. Mm-hmm. You couldn't be outside.
Oh, yeah. No, it was
everywhere.
Remember
Tom Brady was in the park in Florida?
Yeah, SWAT team moved in.
And remember the people screaming because I remember the one people were screaming because somebody was riding by on a bike without a mask on. Mm-hmm. And they were screaming, "You got to wear a mask!" Mm-hmm. It's completely. But I mean, we closed down outside parks.
Mm-hmm. You know what's funny? I never, ever, ever got approached when I was outside at a park during that time. Not once. Never got approached. Maybe it was because all the enforcers were working from home. I never got approached. Not once.
I remember coming into work and Brian had those letters
Yeah.
That we were able to drive to and from. People forget about this. I mean, because now this didn't go on. Well, I don't know how long that went on for, like a month or longer.
I think it was much shorter than that.
But we remember,
in terms of enforcement, it never went on.
the enforcement never happened. Yeah. But remember, you were only supposed to go to work or to the store.
Well, that was the thing.
And then they closed bars.
Right. That was
not
the thing.
Liquor stores.
That was the thing, and because talking to this one person who lived in an apartment complex near a small community college, and said, "No, I walk back and forth. I walk through this park every day because I'm walking to class, And then shortly after that, they decided to go to online learning only, and that's when they closed that campus down. But walking to work, walking to, you could be anywhere. If you got pulled over, well, I'm driving to the store. Prove that I'm not. That's why enforcement wasn't going to do a thing about that.
Right. I don't know of a state that actually enforced that.
No.
But remember, you have to wear a mask when you're walking down the sidewalk, like in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't they do that? Was it San Antonio or Austin or Houston, was it?
Yeah, I don't remember.
And also it was, when you're outside, you need to make sure you have your mask on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, none of it was enforced. They tried to enforce some of the things here and in this county where we broadcast from. And Democrats came out and said, nope. The judge that was he was in charge of the decisions on the policies for the county. And I blank on his name right now. But the Democrats in the county,
Clay Jenkins.
Clay Jenkins. The other Democrats in the county came in and said, no, you're not going to enforce any fine. That's not going to happen.
I think early on they were trying to enforce it in L.A.
Yeah, but in Texas they weren't. That's and because everything was enforced in California.
Well, unless you were the governor.
No, governors are exempt. Because it's known. Right. It's known that they cannot get COVID. Proven.
866-90 Red Eye.
Most owner-operators leased to larger carriers are paid on a per-mile basis or a percentage of revenue per load. The per-mile basis is most prevalent among larger fleets, percentage at smaller. Pay per mile tends to dominate discussions about pay just because it's easier to measure, and pay per mile often is wrongly used as the deciding factor in leasing to a carrier. While pay per mile can be a vital factor, it's not a cure for every ill. Nor does it mean a big settlement check is coming an owner-operator's way. Why? Because pay per mile always must be considered in balance with gross revenue as well as total costs. Gross revenue can include flat mileage pay that varies by length of haul, percentage revenue pay, and more. Most importantly, though, for every revenue dollar generated, only part of that dollar is profit. But for every extra dollar of cost saved, the entire dollar contributes to profit. Knowing and understanding your cost to operate is fundamental to understanding the true value of any pay package. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. Coming up, what two Obama economists have to say about what's going on right now with inflation, and one actually admitting that cutting spending would help the pressures against inflation. Ooh. Also, you saw Anthony Blinken now, Ron Johnson, Republican senator, said he lied to Congress, and I believe he's correct. He did lie to Congress. He said he had never, ever, received or sent emails to Hunter Biden. We know that's not true now.
Right.
And so you've got, the charge that Blinken lied to Congress, that Garland lied to Congress. It's getting pretty deep. Jonathan Turley writing a column on Hunter and his lawyers going, to talk to law enforcement last week and what that might mean.
Yeah.
And things are getting really, really interesting there. So we will get to that. And plus, Satan Con went on here in the last week.
Yeah. Okay.
See that?
Yeah.
In Boston, apparently. Mm-hmm. Satan Con.
Yeah. I thought the Democratic National Convention wasn't until next summer.
And they shredded the Bible and a pro-cop flag.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Satan is not pro-cop.
No.
Right?
No.
I mean, that's
it's not for law and
obvious.
order.
Right, exactly.
Listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 86690 Red Eye. Let me just explain a little bit further, because we were talking about, just briefly mention, the Boston Satan Con that went on there, where here it is, a group of Satanists cheered as two leaders opened Satan Con 2023 on Friday with a formal ceremony renouncing the symbols of oppression by ripping up a Bible and a thin blue line flag representing police.
Uh-huh.
And my point was, of course, Satan is not pro-cop. I was not insulting the police officers at all. It's just the police officers, as we know, law enforcement catches people who sin.
Mm-hmm.
And Satanists are pro-sin.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure I explain that fully.
Yeah, they are not for law and order.
Right. Right. So it's.
Yeah. Man. They were the original defund the police. Satanists. They're looking around going, hey, we've been saying that since like the beginning of time. and nobody heard us. Yeah.
How do you get into, I need to expand my my vision and meet new people. Who's out there? What kind of club? I'm lonely. Where can I meet women?
Gary McNamara.
Wait a minute. Wasn't that that was a 2.5 Men with Charlie, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a bunch of women Satanists that he met, though.
Well,
I need to meet some new people. So, hey, you look pretty cute. What are you up to? Oh, I'm a Satanist.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. I guess then meeting my parents is out of the question. You've never taken me to meet your parents. Why? Well, there's that little thing. It's just a small thing to me. But, they're old-fashioned. It's a generational thing. They're not pro-Satan. I'm for whatever you want to be, but mom and dad, they come from the, really old generation,
Oh, I can see where
they're not educated.
I can see where this is going with the left.
Yeah.
Well, Satanist grooming in schools.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we know one book that they would be against.
Exactly.
But that's okay, because Democrats have already taken that book.
The Bible, yes.
Way out of the classroom.
Wait a minute, wasn't there a Democrat representative? What was that story over the weekend? The Democrat on the Bible. I got to find this story here, because I just saw the headline. Oh, I can't. It's not there.
Well, I'd have to, and
here it is. Arizona Democrat minister, lawmaker caught on camera hiding Bibles. It was a holy mystery at the Arizona State Capitol, with Bibles vanishing in the House members only lounge. It prompted the security team to place a camera to catch the most unlikely culprit, an ordained minister who's also a Democrat state lawmaker. Video shows Representative Stephanie Stahl Hamilton swiping 2 Bibles in minutes. It's a move that Republican Speaker Travis Grantham believes is sinister. When I'm watching that, I'm thinking, well, this is obviously someone who's got some purpose and some intent, and they know that they're doing something bad. What's even more strange is the revelation made by the House security team. One of the holy books was buried in the members-only lounge furniture and another in the community refrigerator. For an ordained minister to do that, again, is nonsensical. I have no clarity as to why that happened.
The refrigerator?
And you can watch him. It's right there on Twitter.
Yeah.
Caught on video, Arizona Democratic lawmaker, ordained minister, busted swiping Bibles from the House's members-only lounge. She called it a little playful commentary for separation of church and state. Republican leadership are not laughing.
Mm-hmm. Well, but what about the separation of church and mayonnaise? Why would you put it in the fridge? What? Hey, is anybody going to claim this Bible?
After several requests for comment and a phone call cut short, Arizona's family confronted Stahl Hamilton for an explanation, who quickly walked away from the camera and questions. Then Hamilton sent a statement to Arizona's family, just a little playful commentary on the separation of church and state. I'm a Presbyterian minister, so obviously I don't have a problem with the Bible. Apparently you do.
Yeah, you do.
Wow.
Well, way to put your religion first. I mean, you put God way down on the list. We can't have these Bibles in the lounge. We're going to hide them in the refrigerator.
In a statement that didn't inspire faith, she said, no, not at all. Don't have a problem with the Bible. The state motto is God enriches. I don't quite understand the issue of having Bibles available for members to read. However, sources told Arizona families that no complaint was made to the leadership by Stahl Hamilton about the Bibles in the members-only lounge.
Right.
Okay, somebody else said the first part then. They don't have it right. They didn't explain it fully here. I'm reading here from Arizona's.
Well, having Bibles in the lounge is not those lawmakers establishing religion.
No. First Amendment is quite clear on that.
Yep.
Congress cannot establish a religion.
Right.
Like the Church of England.
Right. It doesn't say anything about the Bible in the lounge.
No, it does not.
I'll put my political beliefs above my religious beliefs. Wow. Yeah. No shocker, though. So no one ever looks in the fridge?
I don't know. I mean, people are just, I'm telling you, liberals,
You can't find
liberals are just weird. I'm sorry. Liberals, you're weird.
You can't find a better hiding place? Wow. All right. Yeah. You're not even trying. Yeah, what's interesting is from what we know, only this lawmaker has a problem. This person is the only one with a complaint. Because they acted on it. Of having Bibles in the lounge. They're the only ones making the complaint. And quite often is the case where you see people trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well.
That nobody's complaining about.
She could virtue signal, though.
Yeah.
Nobody was complaining about it. Mm-hmm. I didn't file a complaint. Didn't really bother me at all. But I had to hide them.
Right. You had to hide it because you're a liar, because you couldn't come out and say, I'm taking these out of the lounge in protest, because then you would be seen as the fraud that you are. So you had to do that without people seeing you. Of course, the security cameras saw you. And then pretend, oh, wait, it was only about. No. If you believe in something so strongly, then say it. It was strong enough for you to remove the Bibles. Why can't you stand up for what you actually believe in? It isn't your religion.
You just mentioned when just talking about this, and I just was off the cuff talking about SatanCon. Mm-hmm. But I've got to find the audio cut from last week. I believe it was last week, Senator Kennedy talking about abortion to somebody who believes, and they will not answer the question. And it's fun. And if you want to, because Republicans, you hear this thing that Republicans can't win because of abortion. Understand that Democrats won't answer the question as to, and the question was simple, do you support abortion up to birth? Would not answer the question. Mm-hmm. Over and over again, I'm simply asking you a question. It's yes or no. No, it's not. Well, yes, it is.
Right.
We know that every single Democrat in the House who voted on it believes that abortion should go to birth.
Right.
And so why won't you state it? Oh, it was really, I got to find it because it was really interesting back and forth. And I believe because the witness was black, she tried to make it seem like it was a racist comment for him to bring it up.
Right. How dare you?
I forgot what word she used. I'll find it again, though. But it was interesting because, as we've stated before, the majority of the public, in fact, every single woman who was mostly approached me on the topic, knowing I was a talk show host after the Dodd decision, most of them understood the point completely, because none of them, all that were pro-choice, none of them believed in abortion up to birth. Mm-hmm. I said, well, then it's not about it being your body. You're not even stating your body supersedes that of the baby in the womb, because you're stating at a certain time you believe it is a child. And that's the way that the majority of the American public believes. Mm-hmm. And that's what Republicans have to focus in on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the argument really is not what the Democrats are stating, abortion up to birth or no abortion. It is the American public that morally is caught with not being able to define when life begins, but they know it begins in the womb. Mm-hmm. And that's completely different than the way it was in 1975 in this country.
Right.
That wasn't even discussed.
Right.
And so the movement is there where the public does believe, including the majority of women, that life begins sometime in the womb. Now, the biggest thing, the confusing thing for them and the frustrating thing, as I found out last week when I had a discussion with a woman on it, the incredible, terribly frustrating thing, but it's not, but it just isn't right. Even though that person believed, because that person, it's not right for the women that then would be forced to give birth. Well, what if it's a child and it's a human being on the other side? Mm-hmm. And she couldn't answer the question. So you're saying that the woman should be considered, but you're admitting that the baby is a human being. And if it's a human being, the human being has a right to live like you do or I do. She was all flustered, completely flustered by that. And so the point, and then I let her off the hook. I said, just so you understand, that's the, I'm just showing you the moral problem that America is dealing with right now, because you are absolutely perfect as to where the American public is, and it's frustrating.
If we're going to actually have the discussion and not just have a march.
Exactly, when you actually have the debate on it, which is why they don't want the debate. And that's why I've said, on every single issue, the Republicans can win, and even on the abortion issue, the public sides more with the way the Republicans think about it and understand that the vast majority of women are extremely concerned about when life begins in the womb. They may not be able to define it. They may not want to define it, but the majority knows it begins in the womb.
Yeah.
That's what they believe.
Yep.
Which is why it's a winning issue. Boy, we've covered a lot of religious topics here over the last little bit.
We have. By the way, the number one cosplay at SatanCon, Hillary Clinton.
Do they play AC/DC? Highway to Hell.
I think it's Taylor Swift.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. 866-90 Red Eye. What the Obama economists had to say. And, might be a race for Joe Manchin.
Oh.
Come 2024. That, more on the way.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. All right, so I found the back and forth that I wanted. It popped into my brain at the last part of the discussion we were having on abortion last hour, and this took place last week. It was the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on abortion, and they had Professor Michelle Goodwin from University of California, Irvine, who teaches constitutional law and is also a member of the American Civil Liberties Union. And so, is she pro-abortion? Yes. But just listen to this questioning back and forth, which is very important because you will find out, for example, that every Democrat bill that we have seen on the federal level wants to take abortion to birth. When I had the discussion last week with another woman that we got into the discussion on, who believes that life begins sometime in the womb but can't tell you when she was told, no, Democrats believe in abortion till birth, she goes, no, they don't. Yeah, they do. Democrats on the federal level in Congress do. And she was surprised by that, completely surprised. That's because that's not a winning argument. And I want to play this because it shows you can debate the abortion issue.
Yeah.
Which a lot of Republicans do not wish to do because you see all the time that it's a losing issue. Is it if you frame it correctly? This is Senator Kennedy with Professor Goodman last week.
Professor Goodwin, help me understand your point of view. I think this is a yes or no question. Do you support it being legal to abort an unborn child up to the moment of birth?
I will clear it, and we should be okay. All right, I'm going to continue it, okay? Sorry I had other windows open. My apologies. All right, we go back now. Here we go.
I'm just trying to understand your perspective, and I'm not accusing you of this.
Of course
not. But people sort of talk around this issue. If there were a bill that said that a woman has an unfettered right to abort an unborn baby for any reason up to the moment of birth, would you vote yes or would you vote no?
Senator Kennedy, I refuse to be shackled by your question. What I have answered is that there are conditions that occur
you don't know
during
whether
pregnancy.
You would vote yes or no?
There are conditions during pregnancy that mean after 10 weeks,
no,
14 weeks,
I said
20 weeks,
discretion.
24 weeks,
you
conditions
would
such as Ms.
support,
Sarosky.
You're here
and
advocating.
I would support her life.
I
would support her
too,
personhood.
But you're advocating a law.
I support her personhood.
You're advocating a law that says that an unborn baby can be aborted up to the moment of birth for any reason. Are you not?
Let me clarify what the 14th Amendment says in the first sentence, that citizens of this United States are individuals that are born. That is what our Constitution says.
But
do you
why won't you
support our
answer my question, Professor? I'm not trying to argue. I just want to understand what your position is, and I think you're afraid to say that you do support that.
There you go. And she would never answer the question. It's because they cannot be put on record stating that that's what they're for.
Right.
Understand the weakness in their argument.
Right. I mean, and we all know exactly what they're for, and she was pretty much saying it. After they're born, they have rights.
Right.
Up until the point that they are born, they don't.
But she still won't answer the question.
Nope.
And so I just wanted to play that because it is something that can be argued from the right better than ever before. And the opportunity is there. And if it's an issue that they believe they have an easy win on, don't make it easy for them. Debate it.
The Dodd decision opened up the door for the debate. It opened up the door for the real discussion. But Democrats in power cannot have that. Because they can't have a discussion on any issue. They can't address anything that's wrong right now. And if you try and criticize them, then automatically they go to the playbook. Oh, you're a bigot. Automatically. Any questioning, oh, you're a bigot. How dare you question our agenda?
You know, it's interesting because we're talking about the Dodd decision there, and a couple of articles written after Alito came out last week and said basically he believes he knows who leaked it. You know, who leaked the decision.
Right.
And it's fascinating. So when Samuel Alito, this is Jeffrey Blahar, National Review. So when Alito says that he's pretty sure he knows who the leaker is and that it came from the left, and when you square that with the Marshal of the Supreme Court and the squishy language in her final report about not being able to identify the leaker to a preponderance of the evidence standard, it would behoove court observers, regardless of how partisan they are, to understand that nobody in a position such as Alito's thinks carefully about this, goes out and arranges a newsmaking interview with a friendly venue and puts not only their own reputation but that of the entire conservative wing on the of the court on the line if he's lying. Samuel Alito is a human being in addition to being a judge. He's not showing up for work on Monday and looking his fellow justices in the eye if either he's blustering here or if they think he is. My guess is simple. Everyone on the Supreme Court is either biblically or pretty sure who the leaker is. They talk about it. They think about it. They obviously have talked about it a lot because it's a matter of internal security, and also they are not robots. What that leaves the rest of us with, speculation. I find it unproductive. Theories abound as to the identity of the leaker, all merely based on suspicion or rumor, and one imagines that just as we finally learn the identity of Deep Throat, so too will we learn one day who leaked Dobbs to Politico in an attempt to alter its final outcome, which is what Alito said. That was why it was released.
Right.
After its outcome. Until then, we can only observe the horrifying damage it's done to the Supreme Court as an institution. Justices were turned into targets of assassination. Trust was shattered between the chambers. One can only guess at the internal ructions and hope, perhaps, to read about it decades later. So there you go. So his point is they know who it is.
I felt from the beginning that internally they knew. I thought that the investigation would lead to something, but my question is, well, do you stop short in that process?
Well, let me ask you this. If they all know, and the liberal justices know, and it is, and let's say it is since it was done only for one reason, and that was to stop this decision, then, is it a liberal law clerk? And if it is, and everybody knows, including the justice in the Supreme Court, whose law clerk that is, will they be fired? Or do you allow it to happen again? Has anybody had a conversation with that particular person saying, we believe it was you, but we can't prove it? And at what point do you fire that person? That, as we know, hasn't been talked about. I would suspect, from the way that Alito put it, that the person is still there.
It made it sound like that.
If the person is still there, how can you have any trust between the conservative justices and the liberal justices? If the conservative justices believe that at any time, because if that person is not fired, even if there's a suspicion or laid off or moved somewhere else,
or worked for a justice who is now retired and maybe they're not there anymore.
Yeah, Breyer, of course, yeah, because that talk was also that Breyer knew about it, there was
because if the person still works there, then there's a threat of another leak.
Right.
If they're not there, then all the justices could look at it and say, okay, the threat is actually gone, and we're not going to pursue it otherwise. Because what you heard from Alito was basically, well, I know who it is, but I can't prove it.
Yeah, because it sounds like the trust has been rebuilt. So did they either fire the person or was it from a previous justice?
Right.
A law clerk from a previous justice.
That no longer works there or, we may never know. Or it may be a long, long time before we learn. If it were a clerk for a constructionist justice, don't you think there would be a leak? We'd know.
The justice would be impeached already.
I mean, look at everything that they're trying to throw at Thomas.
Mm-hmm. And Gorsuch, too.
So my thought is, he can't prove it. Alito basically saying, I know who it was, but I can't prove it, so I'm not going to go any further with it. But if it were a clerk for a liberal justice, probably wouldn't be a leak. Because there has to be some consideration for, number one, eliminating that from happening again. If you know the person or you believe that everyone knows the person that's responsible for it, if they're gone and that threat doesn't exist anymore, if they are no longer in that capacity, aren't working in that role any longer, then everybody just goes back to what they were doing. If they're still there, then the threat still exists. If everybody knows it, then the person who did it knows that everybody knows it. And so you still have a threat. You still have a leak.
Right.
Or a leaker, and you can't fully trust that person, you know it. So that's what leads me to believe that the person isn't in that role any longer.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. So we've got more Obama economists speaking out over the last couple of days. During an interview on Friday's edition of Bloomberg's Wall Street Week, Harvard professor economist, director of National Economic Council under President Obama, and Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton, Lawrence Summers, stated that we've got a bit of stagflationary problems here in developing where we have base inflation that's well above the target, and you won't get inflation back to the target level without a meaningful slowdown of the economy. Then you have Jason Furman, former Obama economist, during an interview also on Bloomberg on Friday. He is professor of the practice of economic policy at Harvard and the Harvard Kennedy School, served as chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors under President Barack Obama and the Council of Economic Advisors and the National Economic Council under President Bill Clinton, said inflation has been moving sideways and the Federal Reserve is very far from where it needs to be on inflation and not getting closer. He also stated that if the government contracted its fiscal policy, that would certainly help with inflation as long as it does not hurt the most vulnerable. Talking about the fact of actually cutting spending.
Yeah.
Cutting spending would help.
Right. And the last part, as long as it wouldn't hurt the most vulnerable. Well,
yes. Which
is why you won't ever get to that point.
Well, like there was a fiscal contraction.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if we did a fiscal contraction,
mm-hmm. If we cut spending.
If the Democrats cut spending, mm-hmm. and it's something that you and I have talked about that isn't being talked about at all, that if the budget, if the Democrats get what they want with raising the cap and the spending still continues, that what the Republicans even have to compromise is way over what we were pre-COVID.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Then what will the effect be on inflation? Now, we know that it was these Obama economists that had pointed out to the spending under Joe Biden and the American Rescue Act plan, whatever it was, the $1.9 trillion, they predicted that would lead to inflation. What I'm getting now is the spending by saying, look, if you want to help stop with this inflation, then stop the spending that we're doing. He's indicating that the spending that is being planned on being done by the Democrats is going to cause more inflation and make it harder, or at the minimum, make it harder to get under control.
Yeah, which I assumed was going to be the case because you look at the whole back and forth on the debt ceiling, and it's not, the Democrats aren't even anywhere close to what the GOP in the House wants to do. And so there's no doubt it's going to have an impact, which means, look, you pair that with what they're saying here, too. They agree that the Fed isn't serious about inflation. That's what I've been saying for the longest time. Powell's not serious about inflation. So now you have stagflation because he's raising the interest, but he's not raising the interest to the point of taking care of inflation. And that brings on stagflation. And the spending is going to continue.
And we had asked the question that when we saw we were over $1 trillion, only $500 billion in deficit this year alone, just 6 months into the fiscal year. Oh my God, are we going to be at $2 trillion for this year? And we're out of COVID.
Yeah.
And at that point, and if we are slowing down the economy, that means less revenue.
Right.
Less revenue means the debt's going to be higher. The debt is part of the reason. And then, as we know, that increased debt at a higher interest rate, you've got to pay more on Treasury bills. So how don't you cut back if the interest on the debt is going to be $800, $900,
right?
$1 trillion a year in the next few years?
Shenanigans and malarkey. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye.
There are 6 specific decisions that Joe Biden made, either as vice president or president, that are very concerning to us, that we believe could potentially lead back to payments that were made to these LLCs that were then laundered down to the Biden family members.
That's James Comer. That's about, how long ago was that? It was like April 23rd he said that. And yesterday, we know now that the whistleblower has said that the Attorney General lied before Congress. Now, Senator Johnson was on Fox yesterday saying that Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, lied bold-faced to Congress. Here's what he said here. What is interesting, and here's a little news for you, Antony Blinken finally did come in to sit down for a voluntary transcribed interview in December of 2020 because he wanted to be Secretary of State. And now because of more information that's come out, we know that he lied bold-faced to Congress about never emailing Hunter Biden. My guess is he told a bunch of other lies, and hopefully we'll be able to bring him in and his wife back in, tell them to preserve their records. You cannot trust Joe Biden. You cannot trust Hunter Biden. You can't trust the Biden family. You can't trust so many of the people that they've surrounded themselves with. So he was asked a question. So you believe that he lied under oath? Yes, he did. He said he did not email Hunter Biden, and now we have those emails. We also know that his wife, using her private email address when she was an employee of the State Department, was basically a conduit between her husband and Hunter Biden as well. So, again, I think there's so much more to uncover here. There's so much more investigation. He needs to be subpoenaed. I don't have subpoena power. He's got to come in just voluntarily if he wants to proclaim his innocence. I doubt he'll do that, but he must, and she must preserve their records, their personal emails. When you get to the bottom of this, we need to show how corrupt these individuals are. Well, they better be right, and they better be able to, show some evidence on that. Comer talking about the fact that, he's talked a lot about, that he believes there's criminal action to be done here. You better not say it unless you can make your case. If you're saying it, you better be able to make a case to the American public.
Yeah, I take that as you already know it and you already have seen proof of it. If you're making the charge, then you're telling me you have witnessed, you have seen evidence of it. Because a claim like that, if it falls short and it turns out it is not the case, then it undermines the entire integrity of everything. Because here's the thing. We don't know. You and I don't know.
No, we don't. No.
And all of that will have to be proven. There are things we already know.
Influence peddling was done.
Yes.
He took money from foreign governments.
Yep. Politically,
right.
We know of, and we'll see if it's actual possible damage, but certainly the American people don't side with that kind of behavior.
No.
They don't like that kind of behavior.
And the Democrats have now said influence peddling is legal. That's their argument to defend Biden, is that influence peddling. Now, the American public, it depends what was, again, as we have said, there are things that can be done. For a lot of these things, for example, the problem comes with the cover-up or lying to Congress or committing perjury or obstruction of justice.
Right.
And so there's a lot of different things here. But influence peddling, if you did favors, for these governments or you did the policy they wanted because of the money being given in, you're impeached.
Right.
You're done. Jonathan Turley wrote a article, Time is Running Out, for Hunter Biden and his family. And he talked about that the defense team traveling to Delaware seeking an update, that it was, and it wasn't the Department of Justice calling them in. It was the defense team asking for time.
Yeah.
And he says the reason is time is running out on Hunter and the Biden family. This is Jonathan Turley, just so you know who he is, constitutional law professor who is a Democrat. After years of delaying disclosures and admissions, Hunter could now be pushing to cap off the criminal side of the scandal before more information is released in Arkansas and Washington. For the White House, even a criminal plea is preferred if they can avoid one particular claim, and they may be succeeding. For years, the Bidens have worked with the media's help to delay any recognition of the influence peddling and corruption that may be revealed on Hunter Biden's laptop. Even this week, in child support proceedings in Arkansas, Hunter's counsel continued to refuse to admit ownership of the laptop abandoned at the Mac shop in Wilmington, Delaware in April of 2019. It's interesting because aren't they trying to, what wasn't the lawyer's case? Isn't he suing? Aren't the lawyers suing the
store owner?
The store owner for for illegally, downloading the information from the computer. Well, if it wasn't his, how can they have a lawsuit if it wasn't Hunter's?
So, yeah, right.
It won't work any more than his long refusal to acknowledge his fathering of his 4-year-old child. Just as Hunter could not deny DNA, forensic and other evidence will soon make his laptop denials untenable in proceedings in which he and his counsel are required to tell the truth. These proceedings are now colliding for the Bidens, with the laptop being raised in Arkansas and being investigated in Washington. Time is up, and the Biden team knows it. An establishment of the laptop's authenticity in one form could produce cascading events in the other forms. There's already been a recent shift to a scorched earth strategy, including reportedly threatening possible witnesses and calling for the IRS to investigate critics. New leaks from the Department of Justice investigation have indicated that prosecutors are considering 4 charges: 2 misdemeanor counts for failure to file taxes, a single felony count for tax evasion related to a business expense for 1 year of taxes, and a potential felony count on falsifying a form linked to a gun permit. Those 4 charges could well result in jail time, but the situation is likely to get worse for Hunter if the House reveals new evidence of foreign dealings and their payments. That is why a capstone plea could control the damage for both Hunter and his father. A capstone is designed to protect against erosion and even help to hold together an arch that might otherwise collapse. This capstone plea could avoid a worse scenario and charge that would undermine years of denial by both Bidens. However, there was one conspicuous omission from the list of potential charges that may also indicate a reason to push toward a plea. There is no mention of a charge as an unregistered foreign agent under the Foreign Agent Registration Act. The Justice Department aggressively used this charge against Trump figures like Paul Manafort, and if the same standard is applied, it is hard to see the basis for discarding the charge in the Hunter Biden case. The laptop shows emails from various foreign sources, including some with close connections to foreign governments and intelligence services. There are also records of visits of clients and business associates to the White House, as well as pictures with then Vice President Joe Biden. Finally, there are emails showing Hunter reached out to high-ranking officials like Antony Blinken, right there is where Comer says he lied, for advice. Now our Secretary of State Blinken was then Deputy Secretary of State. However, a FARA charge would be embarrassing to both Biden and Attorney General Merrick Garland. The claim that the president's son was acting as a foreign agent would put a spotlight on the millions of dollars raised in alleged influence peddling. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has claimed that up to 12 Biden family members may have benefited from these foreign payments. Joe Biden was the object of that influence peddling, and the question would become what these foreign interests were seeking to get from their payments. Moreover, the obvious reason not to register as a foreign agent is to conceal these dealings and avoid scrutiny over influence peddling. While the Democrats are now emphasizing that influence peddling is lawful, it is also clearly a form of corruption worthy of investigation. What's more, efforts to conceal influence peddling are often the criminal acts, including FARA violations. A criminal charge could put such motives before a jury and the American public. So Jonathan Turley writing that one.
Yeah. Well, and spot on as usual, and that's exactly where we are. You know, again, for anyone who wants to come out and if you make a direct claim, you better be able to eventually back that up. But the things we already know are huge. And there really is no debate. You can't, and unless you just want to give him a pass. There is no debate on the influence peddling. The question is, did it rise to criminal behavior, and is the current president compromised? Those are your two questions.
And we know, and he didn't put it in here, but we know the president has lied when he said he didn't know about his son's business dealings. Well, why would you lie? If it's all up and up, why would you lie? For Garland, a FARA charge would be equally embarrassing. The Attorney General has refused to appoint a special counsel despite repeated references to the president as a possible recipient of these funds. There are even instructions to Hunter associates to use code names for Joe Biden, like the big guy and Celtic. Some of us have criticized Garland for ignoring the undeniable need for a special counsel. Capping off the scandal with the plea to a couple of tax charges and a gun charge would minimize the damage before the 2024 election. What happens then is anyone's guess. As a first offender, Hunter could plead out such charges to minimal jail time. These are federal charges, so Joe Biden could pardon his son. Presidential pardons have long and checkered history, including presidents using the power to benefit family members and political donors. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that the GOP has the House, at least for the foreseeable future, for nearly 2 more years. Let's see if there's going to be any work done inside the Justice Department, because now I don't believe there will be. If it is true that you have the Attorney General lying under oath, if it's true that Anthony Blinken lied, then tell me why they wouldn't protect him and tell me why we would ever learn anything about an investigation. I don't expect anything to come of it.
And it keeps getting stronger for the Republicans. They're investigating it because of the whistleblower allegation that Garland lied. Well, if Garland is lying about a variety of different things, well, then why would he want a special counsel to go after his boss?
Right.
Because that's the entire point. The special counsel, and as we've talked about before, the payments went to the Biden family, and the allegations are to Biden himself.
Mm-hmm.
You have 1,000 times more evidence to have a special counsel than you ever had for Trump.
Oh yeah,
there wasn't a bit of evidence, none, zero, that Trump colluded with the Russians to hack the election in 2016. None. It didn't exist. We now know it was the Hillary campaign that created and financed the lie and sold it to the media, sold it to the government, and sold it to the law enforcement.
Yeah.
And it was all made up by the Hillary campaign.
Yes.
Probably the most successful political dirty trick in American history with no accountability.
Yep.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90-RED-EYE. So, yeah, I mean, it really is amazing on the Hunter Biden thing and the influence peddling with the family and Joe Biden. Well, not with the family, but the only influence peddling was targeted at Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how every single day something is coming down. I mean, it's every single day. And so it just keeps building and building and building and building. And now you think about it with the accusation of the most fascinating thing here. Now you've had the Merrick Garland accused of lying, the whistleblower accused him of lying. No response.
No.
From Garland at all.
No.
Now the Secretary of State has been accused by a senator of lying. Nothing from the Secretary of State. No release statement at this point. Now, I say that about, Blinken, I don't know how he's going to respond. Garland's always been quick to respond of any type of controversy that happens. He may hold a press conference, take no questions, but he holds the press conference, then turns around and walks away. There's been nothing from Garland on this.
No. And I'm guessing there won't be. Because if he didn't say it by now, I don't know why he would step forward.
I know.
At any time beyond this point.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, 866-90-RED-EYE. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. All right. Border issues. Again, Mayorkas on Meet the Press.
What's the definition of secure border to you?
It is, in the context in which we are working, it is maximizing the resources that we have available to us to deliver the most effective results.
Oh, so what you're saying is you really have no definition for it.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm amazed we didn't hear, well, in the time of present, the present time, that you effectively are in the present, and we try to secure it in the present, not the past or the future.
This moment in time And there's really no moment in time like the current moment in time.
Couple of things. Lori Lightfoot sending a letter to Governor Abbott of Texas yesterday saying, stop sending us migrants.
Oh.
We have all we can handle. This isn't a state versus state issue. This is a national issue. It's like, what the heck do you think's been going on in Texas for all these years? And then again, the illegal immigration in this country with the mass murder.
Yeah,
down in Cleveland, Texas.
So the manhunt continues for the man that the authorities say, is responsible for killing 5 neighbors, execution style. This happened Friday night north of Houston and Cleveland, Texas. This individual that the authorities say is responsible, his name is Francisco Oropesa. He is right now on the run. There is a massive manhunt led by the FBI and multiple agencies that now they have any information leading to the arrest of the suspect now has a total of $80,000 that was raised in a reward. That's a combined $80,000, and they announced that on Sunday. So the story is that Oropesa was outside shooting his gun. The neighbors approached him and said, "Our baby's trying to sleep." And shortly afterward, he went into the house, and that house, not his own, his neighbor's house, and killed 5 people, including an 8-year-old child, an 18-year-old, and some adults. It's when reading the description of the murder scene here, the female adults were covering other children. A couple of those other children lived, one did not, being the 8-year-old. And then you find out that Oropesa, according to authorities, has been deported multiple times.
5 times now, according to Fox.
And the Mayorkas was asked about it. He said, quote, "I won't comment on it because it's an active case."
That's how they get out of answering any question.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot sent a letter to Texas Governor Greg Abbott yesterday urging him not to bus any more migrants to Chicago, calling his move inhumane and dangerous. Quote, "Chicago is a welcoming city, and we collaborate with county, state, and community partners to rise to this challenge, but your lack of consideration or coordination in an attempt to cause chaos and score political points has resulted in a critical tipping point in our ability to receive individuals and families in a safe, orderly, and dignified way." Well, what the hell you think's going on in Texas? And where's your criticism towards the administration? None. Zero. Lightfoot said that Texas is planning on sending more migrants to Chicago starting today, which he argued against, noting that Chicago does not have the resources to house more migrants. She wrote that Chicago has no more shelter spaces and resources. She said many of these migrants are in need of food, water, and medical care. Well, apparently the president doesn't give a damn.
No, he doesn't.
All of which she said Texas has failed to address.
Well, back at you.
Yeah.
You failed to address it, too.
And you're a sanctuary city.
Mm-hmm. There's no funding. Right. Because the entire idea is that the sanctuary policy includes not cooperating with federal authorities, so you welcome individuals there. You're telling them they are welcome there.
She said to tell them to go to Chicago or inhumanely, they don't tell them.
They give them a choice.
They give them a choice of what to do. That's wrong. New York City Mayor Eric Adams last week also criticized busing migrants to Democrat-led cities, saying earlier this year that it is unfair that local governments need to bear the burden of what he called a national obligation. It's right. It's the president caused this.
Mm-hmm.
Lightfoot emphasized the immigration is a national challenge, yet no criticism to the president for his policies of opening the border. None.
Nope.
And where does the public stand on this? 87% of Americans blame the federal government for the border crisis, as they should.
Yep.
87%, according to a new poll from Trafalgar. With local and state government government law enforcement resources overwhelmed by the large increase in illegal immigrants and asylum seekers needing assistance and increased drug cartel activity, do you believe it is the responsibility of states or the federal government to handle these increased costs at the southern border? Among Republicans, 91% said the federal government's responsibility. Surprisingly, 83% of Democrats gave the same answer. I've never seen a poll like this. 87% of American public blames the federal government for the problem at the border. President of the Convention of States Action, Mark Meckler, said with John Solomon, what was most interesting as you dig into the crosstabs, all the Democrats break down by age, party, by race. What you saw was no difference literally within a few points across the board. So it's almost 90% of the people who blame the federal government, and they expect that the states are going to have to fix it. They don't believe that the federal government is going to fix the problem. An overwhelming 94% of Republicans surveyed were either not confident at all or not very confident the federal government has a plan to address the widespread drug and human trafficking occurring at the U.S.-Mexico border. 36% of Democrats expressed a similar lack of confidence, and the rest of the Democrats are lying. So there you go.
It's not going to be fixed.
No, it's
not going to be fixed with this administration.
Nope. And Josh Hawley calling for the FBI to launch a full-scale probe. Remember, last week we found out 85,000 migrant children have disappeared. Federal government has no idea where they are.
They don't care.
As the whistleblower said last week from HHS, the Biden administration is the middleman, is a de facto middleman in the child slave trade.
Yep. They don't care.
The federal government is the middleman in helping the cartel use and abuse children. And 85,000 have disappeared, and now we know the type of slave labor. That report has came out. The New York Times put that out. And as a whistleblower saying had to come forward, the whistleblower actually went to volunteer with the Biden administration to help. She couldn't believe what she saw. And she testified to Congress last week. Said the United States, the Biden administration is the middleman with child exploitation.
Yep.
This is and do Democrats care about it at all? Did you hear after she testified, was there any call by Democrats to find out what the hell is going on and straighten it out and find out why we are bringing children in and we don't know where they go? And then when we do find out, when the New York Times does an investigation, we find out basically slave labor, breaking every single labor law in the United States by employing children. And the Democrats are quiet on it. They don't care. They don't care. I don't know what they care about anymore. I just don't know. I mean, it's almost as if they don't even know what they care about. It's just whatever a Democrat does is okay. We just won't talk about it, and we'll never tell the truth on any issue. We will promote through lies the border is secure.
Yeah.
The border is closed. Remember that one.
Yeah, right.
The border is closed. It's just unbelievable.
Now you got a murderer on the run who shouldn't have been here in the Houston area. No outrage on the left about that.
Josh Hawley is calling for the Federal Bureau of Investigation to launch a full-scale investigation into the whereabouts of 85,000 migrant children who have been released into the United States under President Joe Biden, but whom the Department of Health and Human Services has lost all contact with. We have
absolutely no idea where they are.
The Biden administration is turning this is becoming a third world situation. It's seriously.
Yeah.
85,000 migrants. You have no idea where they are. You don't know who they're with. You don't know who you gave them to. You didn't verify who you gave them to.
Nope.
This is unbelievable. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And it just keeps happening every single day.
Because if you want to scrutinize, well, then you're accused of abusing those children. If you want to hold those families, if you want to look and try and confirm or come up with a way to confirm that those children belong with those families, you're seen as a bigot. You're seen as a child abuser. We can let them go in society and lose all contact with them, essentially handing them back to the cartels. And that's okay. No outrage whatsoever.
None. When the other policy was sending the unaccompanied children back to their families in their home country.
Right.
That was the other choice. And now this choice is have them disappear.
Right. Yeah, and part of the argument from a couple of liberals was, well, we're not going to send them back because we don't know where they would be going back to. We don't know who they would be going back. You don't know who they're with now.
Right. And as the whistleblower said, enabling the cartels, the middleman between the cartels and putting these children to work to pay off their cartel debt.
Yeah. And I'm sure that debt can be paid, actually. No, the truth is, it's never repaid.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on compliance, safety, accountability. Drivers should be familiar with how their actions affect their motor carrier's compliance, safety, accountability, or CSA score in the 7 basic categories. The driver fitness score is based on the physical and medical qualifications of drivers. The vehicle maintenance category requires drivers to know how to inspect CMVs and secure cargo. Hours of service compliance relies on drivers keeping accurate records of duty and abiding by hours of service limits. The unsafe driving category is affected by unsafe driving behaviors such as failing to wear a seatbelt or obey traffic laws. Drivers should understand the drug and alcohol prohibitions to prevent hurting their carrier's controlled substances and alcohol basic score. And drivers who transport hazmat must know how to safely transport hazardous materials according to the regulations. The final basic category, crash prevention, is based on how many crashes a motor carrier has been involved in, so drivers must know how to drive safely to avoid crashes. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. Ramaswamy was on was on Meet the Press over the weekend. Did a good job on the whole transgender thing as what's his name, Chuck Todd, was trying to catch him up on it, which you really couldn't.
No, that's one thing that I think will be important in the debate season if Ramaswamy is to be on that debate stage. But I think there could be some very good conversations potentially about actual issues.
Well, when you look at it, you see him, and he's been making, I call him the little engine that's trying.
Yeah.
Because he's all over the place. He's doing interviews everywhere. And every time he does an interview, you see comments going, that was really good. Okay, he's right on topic. He's right on. You get Nikki Haley out there, and it's like she's all over the place. And Ramaswamy, every time you see him out there, it's like, oh, good conservative principles. Oh, that's right on the mark. Oh, okay, he's a Harvard biologist, and Chuck Todd's trying to argue with him on what gender and sex is. He goes, hey, XY chromosome XX. It was like, what are you talking about, Chuck? He was just so blunt. Yeah. And that's what's needed out there. You don't need to shy away from any issue out there.
No.
You don't need to be milquetoast.
No.
There's no reason to be. On every major issue out there, the vast majority of the public agrees with Republicans. They agree on the issues with Republicans. They don't like Republicans. Make them like you and promote the things that they already agree with.
And what gets them the angriest is a fact-based discussion.
Oh, yeah.
It got Don Lemon so angry, it got him fired. Ramaswamy kept us cool during the entire conversation.
You're right.
And it was Don Lemon that lost it.
Right. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't even think about that. He's a conservative hero. He got Don Lemon fired.
Yeah. I would argue Don Lemon got Don Lemon fired.
I know, right.
But by arguing the facts, though, he certainly was the agitator. But that's where the left is. And, the clips from that interview are still circulating in social media. And I just love it because that's exactly what needs to happen.
I can see Ramaswamy in his political ads. Hey, Trump couldn't even get Lemon fired. I
did. That's, and I have to believe, too, that gave his campaign a little bit of a boost because everything was pointing back to that, even though some of the liberal media were saying, well, we believe it goes back to, outside of CNN, we believe it goes back to that discussion that he had, which was on his last day, on that Friday. It was it wasn't maybe his last discussion, but it was Don Lemon's last day at CNN. And Ramaswamy was just talking facts.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90 Red Eye. So, I've always somehow got to get golf into the show, right?
Sure.
My effort always to, and it's got nothing to do with me, but this actually happened at the golf tournament in Mexico this week, where a guy's getting ready to hit his shot. And a swarm of bees comes flying by.
Wow.
Listen to this. I think this is actually from the Golf Channel. And this is just amazing here. Just the audio, but the video is great because you see them all ducking down. But here we go.
Forget, this was the 6th hardest hole. Uh-oh, what's happening here? What was that?
Oh, get down.
They're being swarmed right now with bees.
Oh, my goodness, guys, I'm lucky. I'm about 150 yards away.
but all the players. I've never seen this before.
That's the most unusual thing I've ever seen on the golf course. Everybody just hit the deck. Wow. It's like a fog of bees that just blew through. Now where are they going?
All right. It's restarting. I'm not sure I want to play this second shot right now if I'm Van Rooyen.
I thought, what's this? He sees him coming, gets on the ground. How about our cameraman back there and everybody?
And everybody just, I mean, they were laying down flat. They just all hit the dirt. Just amazing, all these guys lying across the golf course.
Yeah.
That happened. But that didn't happen to me, not on a golf course. But this goes back when I was still playing basketball, and I got to the basketball court earlier. This was probably about 12, 13 years ago. Saturday morning, everybody showed up about 8:30. I was there at 8 o'clock just to shoot baskets and warmed up. Even back then, I needed the extra warm-up time. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I hear this hum. Like, what in the world is that? And all of a sudden, I went, that's a swarm of bees somewhere. And I look up, and there's a cloud probably 20 feet above me, just above the tree line, and just has to be millions of bees. Just zzz, like I completely froze. It just completely froze. And, they had no interest. They were just all probably following the queen somewhere.
Yeah.
And it was just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And I couldn't see in the picture. They could see, obviously, the cloud of bees. I couldn't see it from the camera angle.
Yeah, that's happened to me one time. Flew right over my car, right over the hood. I'm turning around in a parking lot and about to get back onto a road. And then I look to my left, checking for traffic. I've never seen a swarm like that. And it just kept flying, flew right over my hood. Now, for a second, I had my window cracked. I quickly rolled up my window, and it went right over. Family member's wedding. It was on a tree farm where they also leased out the venue to have a wedding. Just as the reception begins, bees everywhere.
Oh.
They stayed there until everyone was gone. Never left. We worked around it. Don't kill one. The moment you kill one, everything changes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great.
And there was this brunch buffet that had been set out, which included waffles and syrup.
Oh.
And orange juice. And cereal for the kids. And holy cow, the wedding cake itself was covered in bees. The owners of the venue refunded every dime.
Yeah, I've always wondered, because I'm still golfing, what happens because that swarm apparently wasn't, nobody was attacked. That was just a swarm going by.
Right.
Yeah. And they must have been pretty low. They must have been pretty low because you can see everybody ducking. I never, when I saw the swarm, they were, 20, 25 feet high.
Mine was right in front of my windshield. They went right over the hood of my car.
Wow. I mean, that's got to scare the daylights out of you when that happens, when they're that low. But you think about it, that if they were killer bees, and you've got probably what I was looking at around that area, looked like about, I don't know how many people in the crowd. Didn't seem like it was like the final round, because you didn't see a lot of people, fans there, but there were probably about 100 people. Well, if you get hit, I've always thought about it with, on the golf course, if killer bees ever hit.
Right.
And I remember about 8 miles from me, really in the midst of suburbia, but, it's a little bit of, it was middle of suburbia, just in, it was middle Arlington, but there was a little bit of farmland where they were running horses. And in a barn, there was a killer bee thing. It killed 2 horses. People had to run, and they got stung, but they all survived. But you sit there and think, what are you doing out on the golf course? There's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
You know, even if you're in your cart, you can't outrun them in your golf cart.
No, at the wedding, no, and you're not going to outrun them. They came in and made themselves at home.
Well, I mean, if they're attacking you, I mean that they weren't attacking.
No,
right? If they're if they're attacking you, that's the difference. What do you do at that point? Which is why when I play golf, if I hit a ball into the woods, let's go in and look. No, I don't think so.
Well, that's one thing that can happen is that if a tree falls, like at the Masters.
Oh, wow.
If there's this is what happened at the wedding, that workers had been working that day on that tree farm. And it was a pretty good distance from where the reception venue was. But they disturbed a nest. And those bees took off. And so quite often, if the tree falls naturally or something disturbs the tree, they get up and they're gone. And they're migrating. I don't know where they're going to. I guess wherever the queen lands. I don't know.
There was I think an attack in Texas in the last couple of weeks that was not killer bees, honeybees. I mean, honeybees can still attack. I mean, that's the thing. But I've always wondered, because I'll never forget, this goes back probably 20 years ago, because it was when I first moved here, that in an alleyway of businesses in Dallas one time, they discovered a killer bee nest. And they were just amazed that, they just finally became a nuisance. And so, people, taking out garbage in the alley, whatever, that they finally brought in professionals to get rid of it, but they never really attacked anybody.
Right. Yeah.
And they were just amazed that they were killer bees with all the noise. And so what I'm wondering is the evolution of killer bees as they moved into more populated territory, is that they become less sensitive. It's always a question I've asked, because if killer bees are as widespread, for example, in Texas, as we're led to believe, well, you would expect that you would have, because bees attack all the time, you would expect that 10,000 people a year would be getting mauled by killer bees, and that's not the case.
Well, outside of killer bees, the only time they attack is if they're disturbed.
Right.
If the queen is threatened or if one of them is killed, then it sets off an attack.
Right.
So if it could be
if it's not
unknowingly.
Right. If it's not killer bees.
That's what I said.
Right.
Outside of killer bees, you rarely see an attack. That's not
right.
You won't see an attack unless that entire hive was disturbed.
Yeah. I got pretty well bitten by hornets when I was a kid. We're taking a stick and knocking down old trees. I hit a stick with a hornet's nest. I got probably about 20 stings on my face.
Yeah, the last time I was attacked, I was taking down some ivy, and there were some in there.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I'm allergic, so I immediately had to get the Benadryl out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder about the killer bees, though. I mean, what is the, because you don't hear a lot. You hear about the attacks here and there. Most of the attacks seem to be not in extremely populated areas. And so I'm just wondering, if they're everywhere, do they become used to the urban noise?
It might be.
And I don't know. I don't know what the
in our vegetable garden, we have things that attract the bees because you need them to pollinate. And so we have things in our backyard to attract bees. And it works. They're everywhere. In the warm weather, they are everywhere. And, man, the last 2 years, the pollination has been – there are other insects also that pollinate, but the bees do it best.
Well, I think that's a good idea. You attract all the bees to your house, and they'll stay away from mine.
I'm hoping we can. Because if the garden turns out like it did last year, it'll be great. It'll be great. Yeah, they're pretty much everywhere. I mean, you go out there and you see them, and I'm not even bothered by them anymore.
But I don't even know. I mean, I don't know what percentage of bees, for example, in Texas. You never see it in the news. You see about the attacks, but you never see the research. They crossed with honeybees, and did that make them less vicious over the period of time with the breeding of honeybees? Because I would think that over the last 40 years, where they've really come into places in the South like Texas, you just would expect that there'd be a heck of a lot more attacks.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep, I don't hear about them.
I may do some research on it. I would have never thought to do research on it, except it happened on a golf course.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, coming up, California approves banning diesel truck sales by 2036. Here was the part of the article that I saw, and I went, what are they talking about? It goes, the truck rule is expected to generate $26.6 billion in health savings, and fleet owners will save an estimated $48 billion from the transition to cleaner vehicles. How?
Measuring only fuel, because you're not talking about the cost of the vehicle. You're not, because you can't make that case when you're talking about the required acquisition of the equipment. It's not going to happen. This is not going to happen. You're not going to be able to mine what is necessary even for one state. The cobalt and the lithium alone, you're not going to be able to mine it. And for the people in California that support this, if you want bare shelves, COVID was nothing.
American Trucking Association calls the rule unrealistic.
Yeah, because it is.
As it becomes clear that California's rhetoric is not being matched by technology, we hope the board will reverse course and allow trucking companies the freedom to choose the clean technologies that work best for their operations, a group said in a statement.
Well, and this is the whole thing. You move the gauge. Now there is nothing that is clean unless it's electric. That's what they're going to tell you, which, by the way, isn't clean either.
No, it's not clean.
You have to mine the materials. And by 2036, of course, it will be outlawed. You'll have to the companies will just have to walk your goods to you. How do you think you get all this stuff?
Bees pulling a wagon?
That's right. Bees make it all. Along with Santa's elves.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, 866-90-RED-EYE. This out just really in the last hour. First Republic Bank is gone. Regulators seized it, and now J.P. Morgan says they will assume all of First Republic's $92 billion in deposits, insured and uninsured.
Yeah.
They're buying most of the bank's assets. FDIC will share losses, according to the Wall Street Journal, with J.P. Morgan. On the loans, the agency estimated that its insurance fund would take a hit of $13 billion in the deal. J.P. Morgan also said it would receive $50 billion in financing from the FDIC.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they get $50 billion in financing, isn't that a $63 billion hit to the taxpayer?
To the taxpayer, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's the financing? What is that? Is that a loan?
If it's not paid back,
is
it's
that
financing? If it's a loan, yeah.
Yeah, is that okay? That's a loan then to J.P. Morgan.
Yeah, financing implies a loan.
I just want to make sure. All right, then. Okay.
Yeah. So, First Republic was larger than Silicon Valley Bank.
Yep.
And this is going to be, a pretty big hit. If not for J.P. Morgan Chase, I wonder what would have happened. But it's inevitable that, as you see, if there are any more bank failures to happen, I don't know what's on the horizon, what analysts are looking at, what other banks they're looking at. But, it will likely, in fact, as it always plays out, it typically is an acquisition, at least a partial acquisition. But this is, in this case, J.P. Morgan taking the entire thing, taking all the deposits here. And if they follow through and they're on sure footing, J.P. Morgan Chase is, then I don't know the terms, by the way, of the financing. I'm assuming, though, it requires them to pay everything back, but I can't tell you that in this moment.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.